The terminal diagnosis notice was clutched in my hand, yet she stood facing Daniel's portrait and commanded, "Confess." I smiled. She didn't know that besides the medical report, my pocket also held the affair video of her and Daniel. This charade, using death to force my confession, needed to end. After all, I was dying, but her good days were also coming to an end. Sophia had once again locked herself in the home office, working until late into the night. In the empty living room, only a small lamp glowed. I sat alone on the sofa, examining the terminal diagnosis notice. Aortic dissection. My life could be in danger at any moment. The doctor told me that the surgery would require opening my chest and stopping my heart, carrying immense risks. Even if it succeeded, I could end up paralyzed or in a vegetative state. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Over the past year, ID noticed a significant weakening in my body. ID lost 20 pounds, but because Sophia was a workaholic and pushed me for deadlines, I never went to the hospital for a checkup. 2 days ago, I suddenly collapsed, and a passerby took me to the hospital. That's when the doctors informed me of my condition. I was hospitalized for 2 days, but Sophia never showed up. When I returned home from the hospital, she was still complaining that I hadn't made dinner. Suddenly, the home office door opened. I snapped back to reality, hastily crumpling the terminal diagnosis notice into a ball and stuffing it into my inner pocket. Luckily, Sophia didn't even notice me. She rubbed her temples and walked directly to the gallery wall, silently gazing at Daniel's picture. After died in a car accident, Sophia insisted on hanging his picture in the house. She said coldly, "I want you to look at him every day and remember your mistakes." Mistakes? What mistakes have I made? On the day it happened, Daniel, fueled by alcohol, was embracing my wife and telling her how much he had missed her over the years. He brazenly ignored my presence as her husband, even at the annual company gala, in front of all our colleagues. I couldn't stand it anymore. I pulled him away from Sophia and pushed him aside. Sophia insisted on taking Daniel home. I sneered, "With so many colleagues here, why would it be your place to personally escort him?" After a long standoff, it was Daniel's assistant who offered to take him, finally diffusing the awkwardness. Who would have thought they'd get into a car accident, and Daniel would die instantly? And, surprisingly, blamed it all on me. The reason was simply my polite remark to the assistant who was driving, "Be careful on the road." Absolutely absurd. After looking at the photo, Sophia turned to face me. She commanded imperiously, "It's time for you to confess to Daniel." I chuckled softly. "How long are you going to keep this act up?" Her brows furrowed, and she picked up the glass of water, splashing it onto my face. "You don't want to confess? Then get a divorce and get out. Are you willing to give up your luxurious life now?" She always used words like that to humiliate me. I was sick of hearing it. Sophia and I had been married for 5 years, and we once had a very loving period. Someone had even created an online fan community for us on social media. Everyone said we were a perfect match. Back then, Sophia had even vowed, "Michael is my lifelong partner, even if he grows old and ugly." Ill love, every wrinkle on his face. However, hearts are fickle, especially when a career is booming and ambition swells. It's easier for other thoughts to take root. I hadn't noticed her special connection with Daniel before. It wasn't until that gala that I realized the bond of childhood sweethearts often lasts forever. Her childhood sweetheart had always held a torch for her, and she had rekindled her fondness for the past, and I, her husband, had instead become her hindrance. Perhaps after I pass away, she'll mourn me just as deeply in front of her next partner as she mourned Daniel initially. I played along with Sophia in this act of mourning Daniel purely out of pity. She was nearly driven mad by guilt and remorse. I thought that letting her shift the blame onto me might make her feel better. I hadn't expected her to get so deeply into character. She naturally came to believe that I was the culprit who caused Daniel's death. "We can get a divorce, but let's wait a bit longer." I got up, intending to go to the bathroom to compose myself. Perhaps feeling her words weren't taken seriously, Sophia suddenly lost her temper. Everything in the house, from the expensive furniture to the delicate decor, we had carefully chosen together. Each piece held a story of our life together. She smashed things while screaming, "Why wasn't it you who died?" Watching the destruction, my heart remained surprisingly calm. I could even genuinely smile and say, "Soon, indeed, soon, with aortic dissection and no medical intervention, I could die at any moment." Sophia didn't understand the deeper meaning of my words. She rushed over and slapped me. "You don't want a divorce? Then go apologize to him now." Ultimately, I compromised, because threatened me. if I didn't confess to Daniel's picture, she would tear up all our baby's photos. My heart ached as if pierced by a knife, and I felt even more disappointed in her. 2 years ago, Sophia became pregnant with my child. At that time, Daniel hadn't yet interfered in our relationship, and we were both overjoyed by the baby's arrival. 9 months later, she gave birth to a chubby, healthy baby. I thought we'd begin a happy life as a family of 3, but an unexpected epidemic claimed our baby's life. After losing our child, I cried until I couldn't breathe. I hung the baby's photos on the wall, commemorating the little angel who brought so much joy to our marriage. But now, Sophia was using our child's photos to threaten me into submission. How could she? My heart felt dead, and I no longer wanted to argue. Late at night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I decided to sit up and gaze at Sophia beside me. Lately, she had always turned her back to me, keeping her distance. I had to reach out and lean over just to see her profile. She seemed to be sleeping restlessly, her brows furrowed, and her once radiant face was now clouded with gloom. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly, and a faint tear stain was visible on her delicate chin. As I watched her, my thoughts drifted back to when we first met. At that time, she was 25. Having just taken over the family business, full of spirit, she navigated business dinners with ease, drawing countless eyes. I was 30, attending the event as a rising designer. Seeing the elite gathered in the venue, I couldn't help but feel a bit reserved. When she concluded the dinner with a brilliant impromptu speech, I couldn't help but applaud enthusiastically, as if I had seen the direction of my own aspirations. She noticed me in the crowd at a glance and walked towards me, her eyes gleaming with intelligence. I sincerely expressed my admiration to her. Then, holding a glass of champagne, she came over to me. "Sir, are you the new designer?" Under the dazzling lights, her skin was as smooth and delicate as cream. So close, I could even smell her subtle perfume. "Yes, my name is Michael. It's an honor to attend this dinner." I slightly lowered my head, eagerly returning her gaze. It wasn't until her cheeks flushed slightly that I reluctantly looked away. At that time, Sophia and I had an unspoken understanding. I wanted to get closer to her. She seemed quite interested in me too, but no one expected that we would spark a romance and walk hand in hand for 5 years. Given our boss-subordinate dynamic, I willingly accommodated her decisive and workaholic nature. At the same time, she gave me strong support in my career and tender care in my personal life. But recently, her domineering nature had exceeded my tolerance, and she had forgotten her past promises. In the dead of night, moonlight streamed through the gaps in the blinds, casting a pale glow. I habitually opened my laptop to check on work progress. This gaming firm, founded by Sophia with her family's backing, had gained widespread popularity with its new game release. This also propelled her onto the wealthiest individuals list in the country. I often lamented that with her good background, combined with her considerable ability and vision, she was destined for greatness. However, achieving success too early, especially with a family business, is never a good thing. I suffered greatly from it, and so did she. I called out Sophia's name several times but received no response. I got up to go to the bathroom. Passing the gallery wall, I was startled by Daniel's portrait again. I grabbed a document and covered it before continuing to the bathroom. Suddenly, a furious voice roared from behind me, "What are you doing?" I froze, then turned around to see Sophia striding toward me. She was furious about my recent disrespect towards Daniel. I was afraid he'd get cold. I walked into the bathroom, answering vaguely. She rushed to the doorway, her eyes bloodshot, glaring at me. "He's already gone. Why do you still insult him?" I sneered. "Me? Insult him? If I truly wanted to insult him, I would have told everyone about your sordid affair at his memorial service." After a long consideration, I finally decided to lay my cards on the table. In my current situation, feigning ignorance was pointless. I had found out about this 2 days ago. Sophia had forgotten her phone when she took a shower, and I saw a video of her and Daniel kissing on it. Even when I mocked her, she didn't take me seriously. It was only then that I fully understood why she felt such deep guilt, to the point of needing to shift the blame onto me just to go on living. Originally, I intended to settle the firm's shares, minimize my losses, and then divorce her. But I hadn't expected to be diagnosed with aortic dissection. I am going to die anyway. Why should I still tolerate this crap? Sophia's anger instantly vanished. She stood frozen, silent for a long time, as I finished washing my face, and walked out. Brushing past her, she suddenly grabbed my wrist, asking me urgently, like someone drowning, "When did you find out?" I shook her hand off, Does it matter? She stumbled back a few steps, then slumped against the wall, slowly sliding to the floor, utterly devastated, looking up at me with a pale face. She gave a bitter smile. You don't care about me at all. In your eyes, I am just a money-making machine. When you were so smugly humiliating Daniel, do you know how I saw you? Truly disgusting. The humiliation she mentioned must have referred to Sophia's last class reunion. I hadn't wanted to attend that day. After all, in the eyes of Sophia's circle of friends, I was just an employee, and our topics of conversation wouldn't align, making it quite awkward, but insisted, saying she would lose face if I didn't go. I was already accustomed to accommodating her. When I attended the gathering, I had prepared gifts for everyone. Everyone else was tactful, knowing that Sophia and my relationship was unusual, and avoided sensitive topics, only repeatedly stressed that I was marrying for money, inquiring about my true standing at home. He even half-jokingly asked Sophia and me if our relationship was merely one of convenience, as rumored by outsiders. It was then that I sensed he had ulterior motives, so I countered, "Are you jealous of me?" My tone was rather harsh, making him uncomfortable. He feigned innocence, saying, "I was just worried you were taking advantage of Sophia. She's naive and kind, she shouldn't be caught up in such a complicated relationship. Oh, if you keep being so self-importantly concerned, I'll just be meddling. I hope you can remain pure too." After that, he just kept drinking silently, sighing occasionally, which drew many people to comfort him. Later, he passed out drunk, and, as expected, put on a drunken display in front of everyone, pouring out his heart. I didn't care what others thought of me. But now I finally understood that Sophia had never truly stood by my side between Daniel and me. Perhaps she even agreed with Daniel, thinking I was just using her, and was the one who genuinely cared for her. How could she forget what truly allowed her to become president at 25, far exceeding her peers? I poured my heart and soul into the firm, racking my brain. Wasn't she the biggest beneficiary? I understand now. She wanted me to confess to Daniel because she believed I had hindered their relationship. I crouched in front of her and said, "Fool, how could you be just a money-making machine? You have your family's backing, too. Only when you lose that halo will you truly be worthless." We rarely argued on a daily basis, but when an outburst occurred, it was as fierce as a flash flood. Years of grievances were settled in an instant. There was no trace of marital affection left. We were like sworn enemies, because we knew each other too well. Every word was a blade striking a vulnerable point, heedless of whether it hurt ourselves along with the enemy. Finally, words were no longer enough to express our emotions, and we resorted to physical blows. The living room, which had been trashed yesterday, now looked even more like a chaotic battlefield. We were like trapped beasts, seeking release by hurting each other. I was at my wit's end. She was overwhelmed. We didn't know how long we fought until Daniel's picture shattered on the floor in the chaos, and we both stopped simultaneously. I looked at the bloody scratches I had left on her face and scoffed. Sophia, truly insane. She roughly wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, gritting her teeth as she retorted, "Yes, I am insane, and you pushed me to it. Ha ha ha, you're right, I am insane too." At the brink of life's countdown, I finally indulged myself once in this marriage. Thinking of this, I felt both triumphant and desolate. There's something even crazier. Tomorrow, I'll expose all the scandalous things you've done. You can't scare me. You love power so much. Are you willing to give it up? She always said I loved power, which was something I could never comprehend. Is there anything wrong with pursuing power? What's wrong with seizing opportunities and striving to achieve one's ambitions? Believe it or not, now get out. After slammed the door shut and left, the home office returned to silence. I stared blankly at the shattered photo frame on the floor. Too many complex thoughts flooded my mind, and the pain almost drove me to collapse. I endured with all my might, only able to alleviate the agony through self-mutilation. My arm was bleeding profusely from being bitten, yet I felt a flicker of perverse satisfaction. Finally, both my emotions and physical strength were drained. The entire night passed like this. It wasn't until 9 in the morning, when the sunlight finally touched me, that I snapped back to reality. I struggled to get up, opened my laptop, and slowly drafted a letter accusing Sophia of embezzling company funds. Even as I clicked send, my heart still ached. 5 years of marriage had amounted to nothing. What a profound pity. 25-year-old Sophia had loved me, but time had diluted that love. We had both changed. Sophia was too young, so young that she was ambitious yet naive. Being the heir to a family business fueled her arrogance, and praise inflated her ego to the point of hubris. She hadn't realized that the business world was like a battlefield, where circumstances changed in an instant. My assistant, Alex, asked me if exposing her this way was too reckless. He said it would be ugly if Sophia retaliated with malicious slander, creating an open conflict between us. I looked at him and chuckled softly. When you make a mistake, you should bear the consequences. If she wants to cause a scene, let her, Alex said in surprise. Michael, this will severely impact her future. Are you really not giving her any leeway? I shook my head. The board of directors received my report. After a vote, they unanimously decided to suspend Sophia. Returning from the firm, Sophia was waiting for me at the front door. She had a key, but ID changed the lock, so she couldn't get in. That's why she looked so disheveled. 3 days after our fallout, her reputation in the industry had plummeted. I walked over and nudged her with the tip of my foot. She lifted her head. Her eyes were bloodshot, and the wounds on her face hadn't healed yet, covered in dark red scabs. After a few seconds of silent staring, she said in a hoarse voice, "Are you trying to take me down with you?" I shook my head. "You think too highly of yourself. Even if you die, I still have a long road ahead." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she still tried to hold on. "Fine. Cruel, disgusting. Yes, I am disgusting. But no matter how disgusting, I always did my best to protect her. When rivals tried to bribe me, I didn't hesitate to give up high salaries to stay by her side. When the media slandered and attacked her, I worked sleepless nights on crisis public relations, finding ways to shield her from negative press. This industry is indeed tough, and she might have found it difficult, but it certainly didn't compare to my efforts. Moreover, what she received far exceeded what she put in, so much so that she simply didn't understand what true hardship or the harsh realities of the world were. I was utterly fed up. I began to humor her, speaking to her according to her wishes. I told her that I had indeed married her for her money, that I had caused Daniel's death, and that if it weren't for me, she and Daniel could have been happy together. After I finished speaking to her wishes, she became even more furious, asking me tearfully, "Did you ever love me?" How pathetic. After 5 years of shared hardships and joys, she was still questioning that. I forced a professional smile, trying to suppress the tremor in my voice. "I love power. How could it be you?" She froze for a few seconds, then turned and ran, as if something terrifying was chasing her. I watched her receding figure, unable to snap out of it for a long time. From that day on, Sophia disappeared without a trace. Her social media feed was wiped clean, leaving only a brief apology in our chat history. I didn't know who her apology was for. Was it for the 1,000 employees at the firm? Was it for Daniel? Or was it for me? I had no way of knowing, but it was a relief that in the past 2 weeks, Sophia hadn't tried to gain sympathy by slandering me. Alex asked me if I wanted to delete the log content on my laptop. I said to leave it. The past couldn't be erased by deletion. It might as well stay. What I truly meant was, after I am gone, that would be the perfect tool to torment Sophia. She hadn't blocked me on the messaging app, nor had she screened my calls, but Sophia simply never contacted me again. It was as if all ties between us had been completely severed, from our financial interests to our emotions, from business to personal matters. Everything was meticulously calculated and clearly handled, without deliberate contact. I even doubted we would ever cross paths again in this lifetime. In that regard, she was more resolute than I had imagined. The property management kept urging me to accept the property, but I always put it off. That day, I couldn't find any more excuses and reluctantly agreed. The house was one Sophia and I had chosen together earlier, intended to be our marital home. She had promised me long ago that before she turned 30, she would have a grand wedding with me, making everyone envious of our love. After earning her first 100 million, she started looking at houses. She discussed renovations with me, envisioning the sweet times we would spend together in our own home. At that time, the words of the young female CEO were especially enchanting. Unlike the intrigues of the business world, her sweet words always sounded so sincere. I sat in the empty shell of a house for the entire day, and only stood up to leave when dusk fell. When I reached the door, for some reason, emotions suddenly surged. I had no strength to resist, clutching my chest, and gasping for air like a fish out of water. I suddenly desperately wanted to understand when Sophia and I had truly begun to drift apart. Before, we could talk all night, envisioning a boundless future. Even at the very beginning, facing immense pressure managing the firm, we never argued. We weighed decisions, formulated strategies, and faced competition. Every step was difficult, but at every step, we supported each other. Neither of us abandoned the other. Why could we share joy but not hardship? Just as I was on the verge of suffocating, my phone suddenly rang. It was Grandma. I took several deep breaths in the darkness, trying to suppress the stinging in my nose. I cleared my throat before I dared to call out to Grandma. Since my diagnosis, she was the one person I dreaded facing the most. The thought of parents having to bury their child filled me with more despair than the day I received my diagnosis. She didn't seem to notice anything amiss and asked about many everyday matters. Suddenly, she changed the subject. Actually, I am quite happy about you and Sophia divorcing. You were too considerate of her. It always pained me to see it. Find someone more suitable in the future. But there wouldn't be a future. Tears welling up again, I leaned against the wall, barely steadying myself. Grandma, I understand. I am not that sad. I won't laugh at you for crying. Come back and see me in a while. When you return, I'll treat you to something delicious. I couldn't listen anymore. I bit my lip, took the phone away, and after several deep breaths, dared to put it back to my ear. Okay, finally hanging up, I burst into uncontrollable sobs for Eleanor. I started actively undergoing treatment. The doctor said the patient's mindset was crucial. I put aside all work and focused on recuperating my body. Every day, I insisted on taking walks, moving slowly when I couldn't walk further, and forcing myself to eat even when I had no appetite, all just to improve my complexion so I would have the courage to go back and see Grandma. I constantly reminded myself that I had no right to give up. I had to fight for more time against my illness. That day, as I dragged my weakened body downstairs, I unexpectedly encountered Sophia again. She seemed to be hesitating whether to enter the building, pacing back and forth by the parking lot. After a long time, she had changed a lot. Her messy hair covered half her face, and she exuded an air of despair. Even the ambitious eyes I admired most had lost their luster. In a daze, she walked towards me. Are you sick? I instinctively shook my head. She frowned, seemingly unconvinced, but didn't press further. Can we talk? I have so much bottled up inside, and I don't know who to tell. Let's talk here. I don't want to walk too far, I said. During our time apart, Sophia had made many investments, both big and small, and out of sentiment, she had lent a lot of money to others. Now she was burdened with debt, and her investments had suffered heavy losses. After she finished speaking, I remained silent. After recounting the ups and downs she'd experienced during this time, she brought up Daniel again. She said that during that period, I was constantly traveling for business, and all I ever talked about was work. Every day, video calls were hastily ended, and when I finally initiated contact with her, it was only to discuss work. She was very unhappy, thinking I resented her because of the baby's death. It just so happened that Daniel returned to the country then, and showed her great care and concern. In a moment of impulse, she got together with Daniel. Michael, I am sorry to him, and I am sorry to you. I was the one who initiated it. But Daniel said he would keep this secret for me forever. He truly was a good person. That's why I got angry when you slandered him. Oh, so Daniel said something like that. Given's personality, she probably felt so guilty that she wanted to compensate him at that very moment. That kind of manipulative tactic was quite clever. I didn't believe his intentions with Sophia were pure, nor did I believe she, as a married woman, was unable to resist. Am I too irresponsible? I couldn't handle the pressure myself, so I pushed the blame onto you. Unable to take responsibility for anyone. Yes. Was I always like this before? Yes. Michael, don't you hate me? Yes, I do. Then why are you still willing to talk to me about this? A dying man speaks from the heart. I smiled, said nothing more, stood up, and waved to her. You should go back. Hearing that you're not doing well makes me quite happy. Can I still find you in the future? Sophia called out, honey, honey. It had been a long time since I'd heard that endearment. Before, every time I heard it, I couldn't help but hug and kiss her. You and I only have a past, no future. I turned back and gave her a faint smile. Despite my diligent efforts to recuperate, my condition rapidly worsened. Even painkillers lost their effect. The intervals between bouts of pain grew shorter, and their duration longer, so I rushed to find a lawyer to draft my will. I had some savings and shares. I transferred a portion to my assistant and friend, Alex, and another portion to Grandma. Alex was shocked when he learned I was sick, and asked a barrage of questions. I had no strength to answer and just shook my head. He then asked, "No, she doesn't deserve to," I said. "After I am gone, just post a brief obituary on the firm's official website. Don't make it too sentimental." After handling these matters, I went back to the old family home. I only stayed for 2 hours before having Alex call me away, using work as an excuse. As I left, Grandma carried a bag of homemade pastries and saw me off to the car. "Make some time for a full physical. Your complexion is terrible. No matter how busy you are, your health comes first." I used the opportunity of embracing her to wipe away my tears. "I know, don't be too idle by yourself at home either. Grandpa's been gone for so many years. You should find a handsome companion." Amidst her laughing scolding, the car slowly drove away. I knew she was still standing there, watching me leave, but I didn't dare to look back at her. From that day on, my bodily functions completely broke down. I vomited more often than I ate. I wanted to go out and see things, but I didn't even have the strength to stand. Fortunately, Alex was there. He didn't mind the trouble of visiting me every day, cooking for me, and keeping me company. He arranged for me to stay at a high-end hospice, and I was grateful to be there. Otherwise, I truly wouldn't have known how to handle incontinence on my own. I was too ashamed to look the caregiver directly in the eye, but nurse seemed unbothered and instead comforted me. "It's all right, sir. It's just sick. There's no need to feel dirty." Her words made me hide under my blanket and cry all night. One day, half a month later, Sophia suddenly appeared before me, looking disheveled from travel. She grabbed my hand, turned my body toward her, and asked tremblingly, "When did you find out about this?" I didn't respond. Sophia emphasized her tone, and asked again, "Michael, when exactly did you get this diagnosis?" I sighed, meeting her gaze resignedly. "It was 2 days before you, and I had that fight." Tears instantly welled in her eyes. Her eye corners and nose tip flushed red, looking truly distressed. Broken sobs escaped her lips. I couldn't help but lightly tap her face. "Are you satisfied now?" She released my hand and painfully pounded her own head with her fists. A moment later, she knelt on the floor and threw herself into my arms. Looking up, she pleaded expectantly, "Honey, is there still hope? I'll raise the money right away. I'll take you to the best hospital." I looked down at her, wishing I could gently stroke her hair, as I used to, but I couldn't. She didn't deserve my forgiveness. I stiffened, trying to suppress the longing rising within me. "Who told you about this?" "I waited outside your building for over a week, and finally, when I couldn't bear it anymore, I went to the firm and found out. Why did everyone else know? But you chose to hide it from me. Don't you hate me? Why didn't you use this opportunity to torment me?" She was like a child who had lost a toy, trying to elicit my pity with her suffering. "Use my death to torment you." I harshly pushed her away. "Do you deserve that? I am not like Daniel. I have no use for your cheap guilt." Sophia insisted on staying at the hospice, silently enduring my cold looks and insults. Having grown up in luxury, she awkwardly imitated other family members of patients, learning to make comforting meals through the hospital room window. I saw her more than once fumbling and burning herself with the hot pot. The familiar excruciating pain struck again, tormenting my nerves like countless fine needles from the inside out, making it impossible to tell where exactly the pain was. I could only curl into a ball, clenching my jaw. The pain had become increasingly frequent during this period. Each time, I relied on thoughts of Grandma to sustain myself, telling myself, "I still have Grandma, she's waiting for me." But this time, it was different. As I vomited a pool of blood-stained filth, my chest was racked with intense pain. Before I could recover from the immense panic, Sophia walked in, carrying chicken soup. The next second, she saw my condition clearly. Her hand trembled, and the entire bowl of golden chicken soup spilled onto the floor, the bowl shattering into several pieces. She rushed toward me, but I instinctively pulled up my blanket, shaking my head frantically. I wanted her to leave, not to come closer, but I couldn't make any sound. She still approached. A pungent odor filled the air, and tiny dust motes felt like 1,000 pounds weighing on my heart. I held my breath, like a lifeless puppet, watching her slowly pull back my blanket, revealing the large stain of blood and vomit. Sophia was consumed by horror, wanting to embrace me but not knowing what to do. The caregiver heard the commotion and rushed in, recovering me and telling Sophia, "Please step outside for a moment." Sophia seemed about to say something, but nurse added, "He wouldn't want you to see him like this. Please, be reasonable." Once she was out of earshot, my body went limp like mud, I managed to force out a grateful smile, my voice barely a whisper from shame. Thank you for your trouble. After dinner that evening, I made a point to call Grandma. She must have been at a community event. It was lively around her, and I could occasionally hear other seniors urging her on. Grandma, how are you even busier than I am? She laughed heartily, because knows, if Grandma's happy, my precious grandson will be happy too. My nose stuck, and I wiped away tears. Wow, Grandma, your wisdom is truly profound. I am incredibly happy right now. Grandma suddenly became serious. Calling me, nothing's wrong, is it? I quickly denied it. Nothing's wrong. Don't you know how capable your grandson is? Go on and enjoy yourself. That's true. You've always been clever since you were a child. All right, I'll go back to what I was doing. Next time you call, give me a heads up so I can clear my schedule. Grandma joked, but I was sobbing uncontrollably. After hanging up, I looked at Sophia, who was crying even harder than I was beside me, and suddenly found it a little amusing. The woman I once loved deeply, it seemed, still needed a long time to truly grow up. Stop crying. Take me to the rooftop. If I can see the sunrise, I'll have no regrets. Sophia hesitated, so I added, is there anything more important than fulfilling my last wish? The city lights reflected like a milky, one moon hung in the sky, another mirrored on the glass curtain walls, and the towering skyscrapers stood as silent witnesses. Between heaven and earth, the wind came and went freely. I sat in the wheelchair, and Sophia slowly pushed me forward. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Reaching the edge of the rooftop, I motioned for her to stop. Here is fine. Stay and talk with me for a while. She sat on the ground beside me, her head resting against my knees. Her hair was messy from the wind, revealing her smooth forehead. Okay, after a long hesitation, I said, say honey again, just once, honey. Tears welled in my eyes, and I roughly ruffled her hair, a form of revenge. But the crawler revenge was yet to come. I struggled to my feet, and slowly walked towards the edge of the rooftop. Sophia nervously followed behind me. I pulled her car keys from my pocket, turned back to smile at her, and then threw them with force. I had secretly taken them from her bag. When we came up, the keys vanished into the darkness, followed by a muffled thud from below. Then, honey, let me teach you a lesson you'll never forget, I said. Sophia frantically grabbed my arm. What are you doing? Michael, say something. What exactly do you want to do? I stared straight at her, smiling, savoring her terrified and desperate expression. After a long moment, I finally spoke. Throwing your car keys away was your lesson, you fool. She sighed in relief. You can push me off here if you want, just don't scare me, please. I nodded dismissively, refocusing my gaze on the distant horizon. Sophia, let's watch the sunrise together. If you can wait with me until the sun comes up, I'll forgive you. A flicker of light appeared in her eyes, and she asked, surprised, really? Really? Well, wait together. In the night, Sophia and I stood side by side, gazing into the distance, the city's clamor intertwining with the sound of the wind. She gradually lowered her guard, her gaze occasionally drifting away from me. The moment she wasn't looking, I sprinted to the edge of the rooftop and jumped. The wind whistled past my ears. I felt my soul finally gaining freedom in my peripheral vision. Sophia's pupils contracted sharply. She stumbled to my side. You lied to me. You lied to me. Again, she cried and screamed, her voice growing fainter and fainter. Finally, I hit the ground with a heavy thud, blood splattering everywhere. She could only helplessly witness my death. The final note I left fluttered in the wind, eventually landing at Sophia's feet. Don't blame me for being too cruel. I am just afraid you'll forget me. Remember this, if you ever hurt anyone else again, I'll come back as a ghost to haunt you. I don't hate you anymore. Sophia, I once loved you, but I'll never forgive you. People in the hospital rushed toward the commotion. My soul floated in midair, watching Sophia's face turn ashen, completely drained of color. She stared intensely at the paper, then suddenly, with bloodshot eyes, she jumped from the rooftop. Honey, I am coming to join you. Please forgive me. As the crowd erupted in screams, her body also hit the ground with a heavy impact, blooming into a spray of blood. I felt my soul gradually ascending. In the blur, I seemed to see Grandma crying. Beside her was Alex, supporting her. Alex was a friend of mine for many years. Not long ago, I had transferred my assets to Grandma and him, knowing's character, I trusted he would take good care of Grandma for me. My last shred of lingering obsession vanished, and my soul began to slowly dissipate. Sophia, in the next life. I never want to meet you again.